President Donald J. Trump. Unreal. Doesn't even begin to describe it. Somehow, out of a country of over 300 million people, we, the electorate, have determined that the one guy, the one person best suited to be our leader right now is Donald Trump. I won't waste your time with this whole video bellyaching about the election results or what a terrible person I think Trump is, although suffice it to say that this is a guy who is a known scam artist, who threatens to sue people who criticize him, who shit-talks people on Twitter like a 14-year-old girl, who once claimed that global warming is a hoax invented by the Chinese to destroy our manufacturing jobs, who lies so often and so brazenly that it, frankly, staggers the imagination, and who just exudes pure sleaze and narcissism and demagoguery from every pore in his body. This guy is an absolute fucking tool. And before I continue, believe me, I am fully aware of how bad Hillary Clinton is as well, so don't misinterpret anything I say in this video as an endorsement of her. She's phony, she's corrupt, she's an agent of the status quo. I can easily imagine a Republican candidate I'd vote for instead of her. One good thing I can say about Trump getting elected is that it does show that the establishment can't just ordain a candidate and force us to vote for them. So there is that. But I'm not going to try and play both sides on this one. These two are not the same. And that's not a judgment I make very lightly. With that said, I'm not here to try and convince anyone that Trump is a bad guy. Nor am I interested in even trying to convince anyone that Trump was a worse choice than Clinton, although clearly I do think that is the case. But by now, I don't think anyone's mind is going to be changed. It is what it is. I think the real question for discussion at this point is, what does this actually mean for our country? Over the course of the next few weeks, you're probably going to hear a lot of conjecture in the media about why and how this happened and what to expect in the near future. Many of the people who are going to be blabbing about this the loudest and telling you what to think are the very same people who were totally and completely wrong about what was happening at every stage of this process, and who were even complicit in getting us to where we are now. To say that the media failed us in this election cycle is quite the understatement. So I would take all of the hand-wringing and doomsaying and constructing of narratives that you're going to be seeing and hearing very soon with a big grain of salt, not least of all including the stuff that I'm about to say in this video. But here's my personal take on it. Some people have said that Trump's candidacy is an expression of rage or rebellion against our decaying political system. My take on it is kind of adjacent to that interpretation. I've discussed this a bit in other videos, but I have felt for a long time that after the wars, and especially the financial crisis, that we sort of lost faith in our institutions. We have lost faith in authority. People no longer trust the government, the media, the academy, or leaders of the private sector. People tend to regard them mostly with cynicism and derision. And while I think that's justified in a lot of cases, people in a civil society do need to trust and work together with the elites to at least some degree. Otherwise, it's just, I think the phrase I used before was it's like a headless horseman on a headless horse. It's just chaos. It's reached a point now here in the United States where it's become almost a pathology, I think, as evidenced by the fact that we picked this guy of all people to be our president. People like Trump because they see him as an outsider. They say he's not a phony like all those people in Washington. He's not one of the elite, using air quotes here. Sure, he's rich, but he's not like a hedge fund manager or Bill Gates kind of guy. He's not like a Goldman Sachs or ExxonMobil kind of rich. He's not really part of that social class. Or at the very least, that is what is perceived by the people who support him. Another important thing that people seem to like about him is that they say that he is authentic, or that he tells it like it is. And when people say this, I don't think it's because he always tells the literal factual truth, or that he is this really genuine, wise kind of person. What I think this actually is and why people get this impression of him or why they have this feeling about him is just simply the fact that he has no shame. And I don't mean that as an insult. It's just an aspect of his personality, and it's an important aspect of his campaign as well. He will say fucking anything. Doesn't matter how crude or stupid or just plain factually incorrect it is. He will say it, and he doesn't care what you think about it. That is what people actually like about him. He has no shame. People are sick of shame. I think that over the past, I want to say like few years, maybe, yeah, I'd say probably like the past like 5 or 6 years especially, like the rise of Twitter, shame has become an increasingly common rhetorical weapon in our public discourse, and people are tired of it. And while I absolutely loathe Trump, I can understand the impulse there. I think it's always better to try to persuade people to agree rather than try to make them feel ashamed to disagree. And I think that a part of the Trump movement is blowback from people who are sick of being told to shut up and feel ashamed of themselves for their opinions. So those are the two big things, really. But third and finally, there is the far-right, genuinely racist, xenophobic element to his supporter base. I do think this aspect has been heavily exaggerated by a lot of people, especially in the media, but it is there, and it's impossible to ignore. I'm not one of these people who thinks that supporting Donald Trump automatically makes you a racist, and I do think that most of his supporters are perfectly well-meaning people who just want to fix their country and can't stand the idea of Hillary Clinton. And I can get that. But the sewer rats are out there. They've found their guy, and he's in the White House now. This is a key part of the question of what actually happens next now that Trump is president, I think. Regardless of what Trump, the individual, actually does in office, I think it's likely that we'll be dealing with a newly invigorated and better organized far-right than we've seen in this country in a long time. We're possibly seeing the embryonic stages of something like this in the alt-right movement. People throw around the word fascism a lot with regard to Trump, and that's probably a bit hyperbolic in my opinion, but I think it's a realistic possibility. If we continue in the direction that we're going, that we could see an actual fascist movement in the United States within our lifetimes. I don't know how likely it is, but that could actually happen. And as kind of a centrist-y, leftish, libertarian kind of guy, that is what actually puts the fear in me a little bit. As much as I've joked and complained about the far left and Tumblr and shit in my videos, the far right is genuinely disturbing to me. So I really do hope that this is not an omen of worse things to come. As for the future of what Trump himself will actually do as president, I really have no idea. So much of what the guy says can just be interpreted as empty bluster that it's hard to tell what really goes on in his head, and I'm not sure what he hopes to or even will be able to accomplish. He will be appointing a new justice to the Supreme Court, but the new justice will be replacing Antonin Scalia. So if he appoints someone very conservative, not much will actually change, though who the hell even knows who he'll pick? It could be like Gary Busey or like the Planters Peanut Man for all we know. So I don't know. Other than that, I just think it's important to remember that while he is the president, he is still just one guy. He's one cog in a much larger machine, for better or worse. People always lose sight of that about the president, and it bothers me a lot. We don't actually know what's going to happen. He might wind up being surprisingly moderate. He might wind up being too incompetent to actually accomplish anything. He might just get assimilated into the Legion of Washington and become another crony of the establishment. He might surround himself with smarter and more well-adjusted people who make all the decisions for him. Or he might get us all killed in a nuclear war. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know. Enjoy your goofy Yahoo Answers videos while you still can, motherfuckers. Yeah, oh well. We're all on Mr. Trump's wild ride now. Let's see where it takes us. See ya, Space Cowboy.